Why is it that the moment a woman stands her ground, looks a narcissist in the eye without flinching, and refuses to bend, suddenly the predator panics? Imagine this: a man who manipulates with charm, who thrives on control, now stumbling over his words because she simply won't play his game. This isn't a power shift, it's a total collapse of his illusion. We're not here to talk about cliches or repeat feel-good phrases. We're diving into the raw psychology of fear, dominance, and emotional resilience. Ever seen a lion back away from a gazelle? No? Exactly. But when a narcissist meets an emotionally fortified woman, something in him recoils. Why? Because strength wrapped in empathy is unpredictable and dangerous. And if you think it ends with her walking away victorious, think again. Because the real twist is still coming. Emotionally strong women possess a rare kind of clarity, the ability to see people not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are. This clarity isn't born from naivety or inexperience. It is the product of trials, heartbreaks, and battles they were never supposed to win, but they did. Each scar became a lesson. Each betrayal became a signal. So when a narcissist steps into their lives with charm-laced lies and a carefully crafted mask, she doesn't get swept away. She watches, she listens, and slowly she begins to notice the cracks beneath the surface. While others might be seduced by the charisma, emotionally strong women are alert to the subtle red flags, the slight contradictions in their stories, the way they twist facts to favor themselves, the manipulation disguised as flattery, the guilt trips disguised as affection. Narcissists rely on confusion to maintain power. They thrive in emotional chaos, constantly shifting narratives, gaslighting, and blurring the lines between truth and fiction. But a woman who knows her worth cannot be gaslit. She doesn't argue to prove herself. She asks questions that expose the lies. She doesn't get reactive. She gets observant. Her emotional strength is not about suppressing her feelings. It's about honoring them without allowing them to be hijacked. She knows that being angry doesn't mean she's lost control, and crying doesn't mean she's weak. In fact, her ability to feel deeply and still stand tall is what gives her an edge. Narcissists are terrified of this because they depend on others to crumble under emotional weight. When a woman refuses to crumble, when she holds her ground and says, "This doesn't feel right," she becomes the mirror that shows the narcissist who he really is. She doesn't play the games. She doesn't fall for the hot and cold behavior or the cycle of idealization and devaluation. When she senses manipulation, she doesn't question her sanity. She questions the source. This shakes the narcissist to his core because for perhaps the first time, his tactics don't land. His compliments feel forced. His criticisms fall flat. The silent treatment doesn't produce panic. It produces silence in return, and that silence is deafening. Narcissists rely on control, and emotionally strong women are uncontrollable, not because they're rebellious or defiant, but because they are rooted. They know what peace feels like, and they're not afraid to walk away to protect it. What's even more threatening to the narcissist is her ability to detach. Most people stay because they're afraid of being alone or believe they can fix the other person, not her. She knows the cost of staying too long in the wrong place, and she refuses to pay it again. When she sees that someone is trying to drain her emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, she doesn't try to rescue them. She rescues herself. And she does it without dramatic exits or bitter words. Sometimes all she says is "no more" and walks away with her head high. That's the moment the narcissist loses all power. He can't beg, guilt, or shame his way back into her life because the door is closed, not out of hate, but out of self-respect. Her emotional strength makes her unafraid of truth. She doesn't need lies to feel good. She doesn't romanticize potential. She doesn't wait for someone to change. If anything, she holds people accountable. She names the manipulation. She calls out the double standards. And she does it with calm precision, not rage. This disarms the narcissist completely. He's used to emotional outbursts, not clear boundaries. He's used to control, not resistance. He's used to fear, not confidence. And when he realizes that nothing he says or does can shake her, the fear begins to surface, not hers, but his. Underneath the narcissist's mask is a fragile ego that cannot handle rejection, criticism, or being irrelevant. An emotionally strong woman doesn't feed that ego. She doesn't need his approval, nor does she react to his disapproval. This starves the narcissist of the very fuel he needs. He tries harder, more flattery, more drama, more manipulation, but nothing works. And in his desperation, he starts to unravel, because for the first time, he's up against someone who not only sees through the illusion, but refuses to be a part of it. There's a quiet power in a woman who knows her value without needing to be reminded of it. Her self-worth is not based on compliments, attention, or approval. It doesn't rise when someone praises her or fall when someone criticizes her. It exists independently, rooted in who she is, not in who others think she should be. This kind of inner security is what renders narcissistic tactics powerless. Narcissists survive by preying on insecurity. They look for cracks in a person's confidence, vulnerabilities they can exploit to gain control. But when a woman no longer looks outward to measure her worth, she becomes a closed door to that manipulation. A narcissist's game is built on reward and punishment. He gives affection to create attachment, then withholds it to create fear. He builds you up with flattery, only to tear you down when you don't meet his needs. It's a cycle designed to keep you chasing validation, constantly wondering if you're enough. But a woman who knows she's enough doesn't chase. She doesn't panic when someone pulls away. She doesn't beg for attention or apologize for being herself. She doesn't mold her personality to fit someone else's expectations. She is centered, and that centeredness cannot be shaken by temporary highs or lows in someone else's behavior. When a narcissist encounters this kind of woman, he quickly finds himself disarmed. His charm falls flat, his silent treatments fail, and his criticisms lose their sting. She may notice them, but they don't define her. She doesn't need him to affirm her beauty, intelligence, or value because she has already claimed those truths for herself. And this is what makes her immune, not because she's cold or emotionless, but because she has clarity. She knows what she brings to the table, and she refuses to sit at one where she has to fight for scraps. Her boundaries are not walls of defense, but expressions of self-respect. She's not trying to protect herself from being hurt. She's just unwilling to abandon herself for anyone. That includes narcissists, no matter how charming they appear at first. He may come in with grand gestures, elaborate praise, and promises that sound like fairy tales, but she sees beyond it. She watches how he treats others. She notices how he responds to the word no. And when the mask slips, and it always does, she doesn't rationalize the red flags. She doesn't confuse possessiveness with love or control with care. She recognizes manipulation for what it is, and she doesn't stay to fix it. What truly confuses the narcissist is her lack of dependency. He can't understand why his approval doesn't excite her or why his disapproval doesn't destroy her. He's used to people reacting, adjusting themselves, becoming smaller just to stay in his favor. But she doesn't shrink. She doesn't compete for attention or try to earn love. She shows up fully, and if that's not enough, she's willing to leave. That terrifies him, because narcissists crave power, and power depends on someone needing them. She doesn't. She has learned that her value doesn't increase when someone wants her, nor does it decrease when someone leaves her. She knows love is not a transaction, and validation is not a currency she needs to survive. She's not looking for someone to complete her. She's already whole. So the emotional roller coaster that narcissists try to create, where they alternate between admiration and rejection, has no effect. She steps off the ride before it even begins. And what makes this even more powerful is that she doesn't have to announce it. Her strength is in how she carries herself, how she handles conflict, how she responds to pressure. She doesn't argue to prove a point or chase to maintain a connection. She lets go with grace. She knows that walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. She doesn't need drama to feel alive or chaos to feel desired. Peace is her home, and anything that threatens it isn't worth her energy. This calm confidence sends a clear message that she cannot be controlled, bought, or broken. And when a narcissist realizes that his usual tactics don't work, when the praise doesn't hook her, the gaslighting doesn't confuse her, and the blame shifting doesn't guilt her, he's left exposed. Without her emotional dependency, he has nothing to leverage, no buttons to push, no fear to feed on. Just a woman standing tall in her truth, unmoved by the storm he tries to create around her. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, and emotionally strong women do it with clarity and conviction. They don't raise walls to keep people out, but they draw lines to protect their peace, their time, and their emotional energy. To the average person, a boundary is simply a limit, an understanding of what is and isn't acceptable. But to a narcissist, a boundary is a direct threat. It signals that their control is limited, their influence questioned, and their ability to manipulate has found resistance. and resistance for someone obsessed with dominance is intolerable. Narcissists thrive in environments where people tolerate discomfort to avoid conflict. They look for emotional loopholes, people who say yes when they want to say no, who avoid confrontation, who forgive too quickly, and who fear being seen as difficult. These are the doors they enter through. But a woman who sets firm boundaries doesn't leave those doors open. She speaks directly. She expresses what she needs, what she will and won't tolerate, and, most importantly, she enforces those limits. This alone dismantles the narcissist's playbook, because without open access to her emotions, without control over her time and attention, the narcissist is left powerless. This is why boundaries are perceived not just as inconvenient but as dangerous by a narcissist. A strong woman's no isn't up for negotiation. It's not a challenge, it's a declaration. It tells the narcissist, you don't get to define how I feel, how I respond, or how close you get to me. And when that control is taken away, the narcissist begins to spiral. His identity is built around dominance, subtle or overt, and when a woman disrupts that by refusing to play along, he takes it personally. He views her self-protection as rejection. Her independence becomes defiance. Her clarity becomes arrogance in his eyes. But the truth is, it's none of those things. She's simply unwilling to betray herself. Strong boundaries also interrupt the cycle of narcissistic abuse. Normally, the narcissist tests limits early, pushing small boundaries just to see if someone reacts. If they get away with it, they push further. They see how much someone is willing to sacrifice for their approval. But when a woman enforces her limits early, the narcissist quickly realizes this isn't someone they can mold. She doesn't excuse bad behavior. She doesn't make endless exceptions. If she says she'll walk away if certain lines are crossed, she means it, and when she follows through, it sends shockwaves through the narcissist's fragile sense of control. What's even more unsettling to the narcissist is that she doesn't set boundaries out of anger or as a power move. She does it from a place of self-love. That makes it unshakable. She's not being reactive. She's being intentional. She's not trying to hurt him or teach him a lesson. She's just choosing herself. And that level of self-prioritization is something the narcissist cannot comprehend, because his entire reality depends on others bending to his will. Her ability to say, "This is not okay," without fear of losing him cuts through the illusions he has built. The narcissist may attempt to push back. He may try guilt, charm, gaslighting, or even rage to get her to retreat. He might say she's being too sensitive, too cold, too unforgiving, but none of it works because she knows the difference between a healthy compromise and self-abandonment. She doesn't let guilt dictate her choices. She understands that loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to mistreat her. So while he plays games to regain control, she simply exits the arena. Her boundaries act as a mirror. They reflect to the narcissist everything he doesn't want to see: his inability to control, his deep insecurity, his lack of real power when faced with someone who won't submit. And that's why he reacts so strongly. He may lash out or withdraw, but underneath it all is fear. Not of her, but of the truth she represents. That real strength doesn't need to control others. It controls itself. And because she refuses to be manipulated, she forces him to confront the reality that he cannot be in charge of someone who is in charge of herself. This dynamic continues even in silence. The narcissist may leave looking for someone more pliable, more agreeable, but he remembers her. He remembers the woman who didn't flinch, who didn't play along, who didn't chase after him when he pulled away. And that memory becomes a symbol of something he both envies and despises: unshakable inner power. Because in the end, it wasn't her attitude or behavior that threatened him. It was the boundary she placed between his dysfunction and her dignity. There's something profoundly unsettling to a narcissist about being truly seen, not just admired or feared, but deeply and accurately perceived. Emotionally strong women carry a presence that is not loud or attention-seeking. It is grounded, clear, and calm. They don't need to raise their voice to command respect. They don't have to dominate a room to leave an impression. Their power comes from a solid sense of self, a confidence that doesn't require permission. And when this kind of woman walks into a narcissist's life, she becomes a mirror he cannot escape. Her presence alone begins to reveal everything he tries to hide. Not because she's trying to expose him, but because her authenticity makes his performance impossible to sustain. Narcissists build their entire identity around a carefully crafted illusion. an image of superiority, success, and charm. They project confidence, control, and emotional invulnerability, all while hiding deep-rooted insecurity, fear of rejection, and shame. They rely on admiration and compliance from others to maintain this illusion. But an emotionally strong woman doesn't respond the way others do. She's not dazzled by surface-level charm or controlled by manipulation. She watches with awareness. She listens with discernment. And even when she doesn't say a word, the narcissist feels the weight of being seen, not as he wants to be, but as he truly is. This level of perception is threatening. Narcissists depend on their ability to shape how others view them. They thrive on adoration, and they crumble under scrutiny. So when a woman refuses to feed the fantasy, when she doesn't laugh at forced jokes, doesn't react to passive-aggressive comments, doesn't engage in power games, it unnerves them. Her silence speaks louder than their performance. Her eye contact feels like a spotlight. And for the first time, they begin to feel transparent. That's where the panic starts. She doesn't accuse or confront recklessly, but her presence questions everything the narcissist pretends to be. If he claims to be confident, why does he seek constant validation? If he says he's in control, why does he react so strongly to resistance? Her simple, unwavering presence asks these questions without uttering a word. She doesn't attack, she reflects. And in that reflection, the narcissist starts to see himself not as the powerful figure he imagines, but as the insecure, fragile persona he tries so hard to suppress. What makes it worse for him is that he can't fake his way past her. With others, he can charm his way into forgiveness, manipulate his way into power, or lie his way into control. But with her, none of that works. She doesn't respond to flattery. She doesn't panic when he withdraws. She doesn't become small to make him feel big. She stays exactly who she is, and that stability reveals how unstable he really is. He begins to unravel, not because she's attacking, but because she's not playing along. She's not caught in his web, and that makes her dangerous to his illusion. The narcissist's power lies in perception. If he can convince others that he's dominant, intelligent, irresistible, or irreplaceable, he maintains control. But when someone sees through that, when someone doesn't buy into the act, the entire structure begins to collapse. She doesn't even have to say it aloud. Her presence says, "I see you." Not the mask, not the image, but the broken, fearful human underneath. And being seen like that, without control over the narrative, is unbearable for someone whose self-worth is built on deception. He might lash out, accuse her of arrogance, coldness, or cruelty, not because she's done anything wrong, but because she's touched a nerve he doesn't want to acknowledge. He might try to devalue her, discredit her, or push her away. But the truth is, it's not her he hates. It's what she represents. She reminds him that his power is conditional, that it only works on people who don't know their own, and she knows hers all too well. Every attempt to regain control, whether through love bombing, guilt tripping, or gaslighting, fails because she can't be moved by false emotion. She sees the pattern, she names it silently, and she doesn't flinch. Her calm is not passivity, it's power. The more he tries to provoke her, the more obvious his insecurity becomes. The more he tries to assert control, the more his desperation shows. In her presence, his illusion of dominance isn't just challenged, it's dismantled. Not by confrontation, but by contrast. Her wholeness exposes his fragmentation. Her clarity exposes his confusion. Her authenticity exposes his performance. And perhaps the most unbearable part is that she does it without trying. She doesn't need to fight or prove anything, she just is. That's the power of emotional strength. It doesn't seek control, it reveals truth. And the truth, when seen through eyes that refuse to look away, is the one thing a narcissist cannot endure.